Welcome to Today in Atlanta Sports, a new daily segment that we will be bringing to you all every morning here at Sports Talk ATL, covering all the hot topics from the day before. I'm your host today, Chase Earl, and while it is a slow time of the year for our favorite sports, especially with the MLB lockout, we did have a huge bounce back win from the Hawks last night, and we also have some more speculation regarding Calvin Ridley from over the weekend from another plugged-in source. But let's begin with the good news. The Hawks on MLK Day, a perfect timing win over the Milwaukee Bucks to snap an incredible 10-game home losing streak that's almost unfathomable considering that the Hawks started 8-1 at home. Trae Young, 30 points, 10 assists, 15 in the fourth quarter. Huge game from him. DeAndre Hunter is really one of the stories for me because the guy has come back in 3 games and looks like he hasn't missed a beat. This is a guy that we were comparing to Cam Reddish. There is no comparison. Hunter is the guy. There's a reason there's no way we're ever going to trade him. Definitely not for a first-round pick. I still believe this guy is going to be an all-star one day in the league. I'm telling you, he just has to get healthy. Just be patient with this guy. He's going to be really, really, really good. Danilo Gallinari chipped in. Huge game. 16 points on just 5 shots from the field. 7 of 8 from the free throw line. But another guy we really have to talk about in this one is another potential star, Onyeka Okongwu. Continued his stellar play. 12 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks. But most importantly, against Giannis Antetokounmpo, who has been the best player in the NBA over the last 2 weeks, averaging over 32 points a game, held him to 25 points. But when Onyeka Okongwu was on him, 2 for 12 from the field, 3 turnovers. Just unbelievable. I'm telling you, if there's a guy built in a lab to guard Giannis, it's this man right here. Huge performance from him. I'm telling you, this guy's the center of the future. We need Clint Capella back, but when we have both of those guys back, that's going to be huge for the Hawks all-around defense. So with this win, the Hawks are now 18-25. That's 3.5 games back of the 10th seed. Definitely not where we thought we were going to be, but think about where we were last year when we made the Eastern Conference Finals. We were 14-20, well out of the playoffs. The Eastern Conference is loaded this year, man. There's 5 or 6 teams that could easily win this thing. The Cavs are playing great basketball. The Hornets are playing great basketball. Even teams that you didn't expect to win 30 games, like the Raptors, are sitting there. So hopefully the Hawks can turn this around, sneak in, because they're a dangerous team if they sneak in like they showed last year. Trae Young if you have him on your team, you can win against anyone because he can drop 50 a night. And I think once this team gets healthier, especially with DeAndre Hunter, Gallinari starts playing a little better, Travis Schlenk makes a few, on the outside moves. I don't need any blockbusters. Give me some defense. Give me some veterans. This team can still make a run. But, hopefully this is the catalyst to get things started. On the flip side, kind of the bad news, we have some more speculation regarding Calvin Ridley, who's probably going to be dealt. Here's Mike Garofalo, who joined Steve Wyke in saying that, hey, he's probably, very, very strong possibility Ridley is out by the end of the year.
With the Atlanta Falcons and Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver that we haven't seen since October when he announced he was stepping away to focus on his mental health. The Falcons saying that situation has not changed at this point, but they are still holding out hope that they will have Calvin Ridley for this upcoming season. That said, I'll try and give you as many facts as I can here, and then I'm going to give you my assessment. The facts are there doesn't sound like there's been a lot of communication between Ridley's camp and the team, this according to sources that I have spoken to. And at some point, the Falcons, are going to have to get in touch with him, have some conversations with that camp to figure out if it's feasible, whether he could come back. Now, our colleague here at NFL Network, Steve Wyche, mentioned recently in a radio interview that there's a possibility that both sides could be looking for a fresh start at some point. I agree with Wyche on that one. I do believe that a fresh start could be in the cards and maybe the best thing for Ridley. It's not a situation where he has any ill will toward the organization. There's just some personal things it sounds like it's going on, and maybe a new location for him would be a good thing. So my educated prediction right now, D. Hall, this is a prediction, it's not a report, but it's educated, is that Calvin Ridley is elsewhere for the 2022 regular season, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, so you see Garofalo, very plugged-in guy, agreeing with Wyche and agreeing with most of us here at Sports Talk ATL that it does kind of seem the fact that there's been no communication, that this is heading towards a trade. We saw them give in to, Julio's demands. This is obviously a much different situation. I don't know if he's unhappy with the organization. I don't know if it's really just strictly mental health. I don't know if it's just like, hey, he just can't be in Atlanta anymore because the things around him in his life aren't doing him any good. It's hard to speculate on those things. I imagine we'll get more answers probably sooner rather than later. I'm sure this is probably priority number one for Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith to figure out, because it's hard to really round out your roster when you don't know what your number one wide receiver is going to be. Is he going to be on the team? But if the Falcons do trade him, they can save 11 million, 11.1 million, all of it. All his whole contract, if moved, will be cleared from their responsibility. So that is the bit of good news. But if you do have to get rid of Calvin, all of a sudden wide receiver, which was the strongest point of this team and maybe the best group of wide receivers in the league 2 years ago, is now the biggest need on this team, probably even above offensive line, maybe even defensive line. I mean, it's that big because, Tajay Sharp, Russell Gage, Olamide Zaccheaus, they're all free agents too. So if Calvin Ridley leaves, Frank Darby is the only wide receiver on the roster for the Falcons, which obviously isn't going to cut it. The guy was basically a special teamer. So definitely going to be the biggest decision of the offseason, the early offseason. I imagine it's going to happen pretty quick. I think this is a very tight knit, close to the vest group, and Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith, they don't seem to leak a lot of things. So I imagine one day we might wake up and it's going to be like Calvin Ridley was traded for, hopefully a late first or a second round pick, but it could even be a third at this point. So we'll see. So that wraps it up for our very first edition of Today in Atlanta Sports. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back with you tomorrow.